Hello everybody. This video is going to show you how to install a Retro-Electro Kit on a 1969 Camaro. I looked around the internet, looked for a video that would show me how, because I kind of like to look and see how things are done before I actually get started, so it kind of gives me a heads up. But I couldn't find anything, so I'm going to go ahead and post a video up for you guys, and hopefully it'll be good enough you can see what's going on. And if not, then I'll just scrap the whole thing. So, anyway, we'll get started. So I haven't actually received the kit yet. I ordered it yesterday, so I can't zoom through too much today. But with a lot of editing, it'll look like I just got it. In the meantime, I figured the best thing to do would be to go ahead and remove the grill and the headlight assemblies. So as you can see, I've removed one, but not the other. The grill was a pretty straightforward process, really. I've never actually done that before. So just take your time and basically remove the bumper. Right here, here's everything that I've removed. You don't have to remove that trim piece from the grill. I just did because I was trying to figure out what to take out the grill, and just some speed nuts on it, and so you can leave that on. And of course the closeout panel is probably not on every car, but there's a little black, if you already have an RS, you don't have the grill already in, then there's a little trim piece goes across the top of the grill right there that's black. You have to take off a couple bumper brackets right there, and of course the bumper. And there's a little pivot arm there for this headlight assembly. I'm not sure if I'm calling all these things the correct names, but you got an idea of what it looks like. That thing was a little booger to get off the headlight assembly. Took me a minute to figure it out, but you'll get it. It's not that bad. Here's the the passenger side headlight assembly, and there was basically just 4 mounting bolts. 1, 2, and then on the back side 3, 4, and you'll want to make note when you take those off, they had some spacers there behind mine, probably to space it just right so that it'll open and close good. I didn't, they just dropped out on me. I didn't happen to notice the location of them, but I could see by looking at my core support, I can tell that there's some marks on it where they were at, so I'm going to assume that that's where they were. So anyway, here's the first one out. I'm going to put some new bushings in this. I got a set of bushings on order for both doors too. So when I get those bushings in, I'll start working on putting new bushings in the doors, in the door assembly, in the headlight assemblies, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, here's the kit. I just received it today from Retro-Electro. It's got everything that you need, so it says, to do the full installation. 2 motors. Doesn't matter which side you put them on, they say. Got the control boxes, passenger and driver side. They're marked. And got the arms right there that go right through this area right here. I'll have to cut a slot, and it will attach right here, and that'll move the doors back and forth. And hardware to connect it all up. So got some fuses, got some washers, and a little aluminum template to drill the 3 holes as indicated by their instructions right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll have that done. I'm still waiting on the bushing kit to arrive to rebuild the doors. So at least I can go this far until I get the bushing kit to rebuild the doors, and we'll go from there. All right. Okay, so cuts are made in the headlight assembly. Wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, actually. The only problem I had, well, the only concern I had, I should say, is when I lined up the aluminum template to make my holes, it doesn't really say what the orientation is, you know, when you lay it down in the hole there. So I guess I just took my best stab at it and hoped I got as close as I could get looking at the picture that they have described in the instructions. So drilled my holes and cut my slot, quite archaic I guess, but you do what you got with what you got. Just dremeled out the corner a little bit. Had to go back in a little bit and dremel it out a little bit more so that the arm would slide over a little further to close the door. So a little trial and error, but I think I got the. Hopefully I didn't take away too much material, and it's still got enough rigidity that it'll not flex. But I don't know what else I could have done. All right, so things are cooking right along. I received my bushing kit tonight, so quite an assortment there of bushings and spacers and washers. And I'm probably only going to use a couple of them, so most of them will go to waste because, you know, a lot of them for the arm that goes down through the front fender and through the crank. And so I'm going to replace these on the doors, replace these back here, and that's pretty much about it. Actually, I'm going to do that on both headlamp assemblies. So anyway, I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'll be back and we'll see what the next step is. Okay, all bushings are in, which is just 4, and a quick test fit of the motor and the arm run through the slot to the door. Reveals that everything looks fine, everything clears fine. It closes. It looks like it closes properly and meets around on the edges. So my hacked up jigsaw cut down there, I guess worked out okay. So I'm going to go in and get some pour or some Rust Zero, paint it up a little bit, keep it from rusting, pull everything back off, and after the paint dries I'll put everything back on, and then I'll put the control box on and we'll go from there. So I just drilled 4 holes there to mount the control box up. I'm getting ready to put it on. I just want to show you the holes first where I located it out. That said to make sure that the control box is facing with the wires in the downward position, I guess to keep moisture out. And so I'm going to mount it up right there. You can see there's a ridge right here that it sets on top of, so it won't set flush. So I got some little spacers, metal spacers I'm going to put on there. So you might keep that in mind if you're going to do this. You'll have to find some of those to space it out a little bit over that ridge. And I got some self-tapping screws. So everybody should have some of those around. So anyway, I'm going to mount it up. So here it is mounted onto the side with the spacers. If I get in there close enough, I'm sure you can tell what's going on. That thing is solid as a rock. There's no way it's moving, which is the way I like things, if I can do it that way. They recommended to use glue, epoxy. You could use 3M tape, they said, but I didn't. I prefer this way. So I also recommend going with the 1-inch self-drilling screws. The 3/4 inch. See if I can focus in on that. 3/4 inch come through, barely grabbed a couple threads with the spacers, so I would go 1 inch. Alright, now I'll put the motor back on. So here it is, with everything installed in all its glory. Got the motor on, the arms on. So as you can see, they say put it on just tight enough so that it can slip if it gets in a bind through the friction discs there. So looks pretty good to me, best I can tell. Let me flip it over. See the back side. So there's everything's installed on the back side. And that's it. So there's one down. I will pull the other one off now and do it, and I don't suppose you need to see the whole procedure again, so I will go ahead and do it, and then when I get done and I start putting the grill back on, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I haven't got it on yet. One more thing I forgot to tell you, or I forgot to do before I put it back on the car, is put this fuse on the hot wire. So it's got, they send you a nice little fuse holder, just wired in. So put some heat shrink on, put the connector on, I'll pull it down inside, put my fuse in, and I'll put it in, find a place that I can put this where it's always accessible, so if I lose power or something, or if it blows the fuse, I can get to it. Okay, I keep getting ahead of myself. forgot to put the ground on, so had to take it back out and do that. So put the ground on to the headlight assembly, threw a little bit of rust zero over it, ground it down real good, ground the paint off before I put the screw in, and covered it up with a little bit of paint. So now the next step is putting it back in. So I had the tiniest of snafu here. Looking from underneath the car, I had to take the motor back off because the motor was hitting the inner fender hole towards the rear, off to the driver's side just a little bit, as you can see. So since the motor won't go through the hole centered, I'm gonna have to, I guess, go in from the top, and I hate to, but I guess I'll drill out or grind away some of that edge so that it'll fit in there. It's my only option. So back to it. So there it is, all dremeled out. I think I got the clearance I need now, I hope. So I'm just going to go in and paint it up now, and I'll retest fit again. So anybody that thinks that they can't do this without a bunch of fancy tools, just kind of showing you that you can. All I used on this was just a Dremel with a little steel cutting wheel, and that's pretty much it. So it takes a little bit longer than it would with some more expensive tools, but gets the job done if you just take your time. Coming out of the control box, as before, we hooked the ground up to the headlamp. I got that connector right there that's going to plug in to the plug coming out of the bottom of the motor, so the control unit to the motor. Got the white and the yellow, which is high beam, low beam, and that connects, I don't know if you can see it or not, but that connects to the tan, what they call tan, looks brown to me, but tan and green. So white to green, yellow to tan. So I'm going to splice it in with those little connectors right there, and then plug in your headlights right there. Don't forget to do that. And then I'll bolt it back up. Now on my passenger side, here's the hot wire that I'm going to hook up right there to the junction box, and that'll give me my power. So that's the fourth wire. So ground, high beam, low beam, and hot wire. So now I have the other side headlight assembly finished, installed. All the wires ran. Last wire that I haven't shown you yet, that's the only thing different from the other side, is the hot power wire right here, running to the horn relay. So I attach it to the terminal right here. And the last thing I have to do is to hook up the battery, and hopefully when I hook up the battery, everything's going to work as I think it will, or I hope it will. So here's where I am currently. I ended up having to, after getting everything wired and testing the lights, the driver's side worked great, open, close, no problem. Passenger side didn't work. So I had to take it off and do a little troubleshooting with Mark from Retro-Electro, and he was kindly enough to help me step through how to test the motor off the car, and I did that. The motor works fine. So I was worried the motor wasn't functional, but it is. So I figured out what my problem is. So this is just going to be for anybody out there that may have the same problem. It might be something you want to look at. If you look right here where you stack the washers on top of the motor, the first washer you put on, got the little groove cut out, sit down on the spline. Right here on this side, I didn't cut enough out. It's kind of got a lip here, and as you can see, the little groove cut into it where the motor was trying to turn, but it couldn't because the washers was stacked on it and it was torqued down. So it was keeping the motor from moving. I'm fully confident that that's what my problem is. So I will Dremel that off, put it all back together, just put it in there, and I bet I'm going to be good to go. Alright guys and gals, so everything is done and reinstalled, and now I'm just going to do a little test for you and see how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and say that's a winner.
So just to summarize, I want to say that I think Retro-Electro is a pretty slick little kit. Installs really easy. Not a lot of wiring, not a lot of hookup. The 69 may have a little bit more, work involved, just because you have to Dremel out the hole in the headlight assembly. I don't think on the 67, 68 you have to do that. I think because the motors install the other way around, they install upside down, and to that, I also had to Dremel out the hole, or cut out the hole, however you want to do it, in my fenders, front fenders. So I had to enlarge those. They weren't centered correctly. So if you don't have to, if they drop right, if you have a 69 and they drop right down in there, then all you have to do is cut your slots. If you have a 67, 68, motors mount upside down, you may not have to cut anything. I'm not sure how the arms work on that, but I'm believing they probably hang below the headlight assembly, so you may not have to cut anything. I would definitely, I've only had this product on a couple days. It probably took me a week to install it, but you know, that's because I've got a little one keeping me busy. So it took me a little bit longer than most people. So that's about it.